Hello everyone. Today we will dive into the powers of the brain. How many are they, what function do they have, and how can we take advantage of them? Let's get right into it. We can see that the brain has two main powers. One is active, and the other is passive. The first one, we can call the irascible power, and the second one we can call the concupiscible power. Both of these powers are sensitive ones, meaning animals also have them, and they're enough for animals to mimic human intellect and will. In fact, the concupiscible power can be thought of as a copy of intellect, and the irascible power as a copy of will. I'll explain both of them right now. The concupiscible power is the one responsible for the distinction of pleasure and pain. It answers certain stimuli and estimates whether they are good or bad for the self. If they are good, then the stimulus is converted to pleasure. If they are bad, the stimulus is converted to pain. The better the stimulus, the greater the pleasure. The worse the stimulus, the greater the pain. It's pretty simple. The irascible power, on the other hand, is an active one. It reacts to stimuli. It is the irascible power that is responsible for the search of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. If the concupiscible power believes a certain entity to produce pleasure, the irascible power consumes it, and if the concupiscible power believes a certain entity to produce pain, the irascible power seeks to destroy it. The existence of these two powers is basically self-evident. Unless you suffer from very rare illnesses, you are able to experience pleasure and pain, and when you do, you definitely feel the need to act accordingly. The similarity between these two powers and the intellectual powers of the human soul becomes more obvious now, since intellect gains information and uses it to determine whether a certain action is good or evil. And the concupiscible power does exactly the same. While will uses the information gained from intellect to act according to the good, and the irascible power does the exact same thing.
But Thomas, if the concupiscible power and the irascible power do the exact same things that are done by intellect and will, why do they exist in the first place? Why is there a distinction between them and the intellectual powers?
This is because the concupiscible and irascible powers are intrinsically flawed. They are very bad at distinguishing good from evil. And this is pretty obvious from the fact that many painful activities are actually good, such as exercising, and many pleasing activities are actually bad, such as drug consumption. The two intellectual powers, on the other hand, are much better at distinguishing good from evil, because they work on the objective forms, and not on the subjective perception of them. Will is then able to stop the irascible power from acting, and intellect is able to modify the perception of the concupiscible power. These two actions performed together form the action of a habit, an action contrary to one's nature that morphs its natural behavior and perception of other actions. We will need to dive further inside of the concupiscible power, the irascible power, and the creation of habits. The next episodes will focus on these themes. For now, be well.